Phoenix Down Radio is on the air.
Welcome everybody to Phoenix Down Radio, episode number 182, part 2. Because we tried this once before, and it didn't go so hot. So here's hoping that the second time's a charm. I'm your host, Klauss Nightbringer. Joining me, and not really getting messed up internet, is Seyrr! Yay!
I have no objections to the huge amounts of rain we've been getting. We desperately need them. The sound is relaxing to me. I love everything about it.
But holy shit, it's like the world is ending out there. I listened to a couple other podcasts that are done out of the San Francisco area, and they're just talking that it's like the apocalypse out there.
I mean, we have had actual flooding, and don't forget, this is after like a decade or more of drought-ish conditions.
Yeah, so everybody out in the Bay Area just doesn't know what rain is.
We know what it is after the last few weeks.
Yeah,
I had actual thunder earlier today. It was great.
Wow.
God, I miss it.
Thunder's nice. It's just very out there, and it's like, yeah, nature's gonna kind of fuck shit up if it wants.
The world is kind of rumbly, and
so is my tumbly. But anyway, so how you been?
Not too bad. Game wise, doing a lot of the various new crafting things. That's been it's a nice thing that I can do while I'm listening to a podcast or to a Dimension 20 episode or something like that, and it's nice to have something that keeps my hands busy there.
Rather than other things that keep your hands busy?
I mean, if I do that, I don't actually get to concentrate on the thing that I am ostensibly listening to. Like, there's a bit of losing the forest for the trees there.
Well...
No.
Well, I mean, as long as you're having fun with, doing the stuff in the game, realistically, that's the part of the game that really lost me. They when they went to the the tools that came from the Ishgard restoration,
the Skysteel tools.
Yes, that's where all those tools lost me. I mean, I've been keeping up with all of the other tools just fine, but just the sheer amount of work you had to go through and gathering stuff in Diadem and crafting a billion and a half things and then going through all of that.
And we'll talk a little bit more about this later in the show.
But yeah.
It is definitely content for a certain type of person. And I am that type of person. So it's working nicely.
Is good. I mean, granted, for me, I've had other things that have been taking my my time and my attention. I still haven't played much of the game recently. I will jump on to do the Hatching Tide event. I mean, I want my Diable Penis outfit just as much as everybody else does.
Man, the community leapt on that fast.
For those who don't know, we'll just talk about it a little bit here. I mean, we're going to be talking about the event a little bit in the news, but
we'll get to it when we talk about the event.
Okay, fair enough. But one thing I did do that was Final Fantasy related was there was a concert on Sunday that Nick Nara and I went to, and it was pretty good. It's the Crystalline Resonance concert. It was on this past Sunday in Hopkins, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. Nice concert venue downtown there, with a brewery right across the street, which is where we started our night. I have never been to a brewery that is self-serve.
That feels like trouble waiting to happen.
Potentially could be, yes, but it's all digital. You have to get get a card that's linked to your bank. They link it to a credit card, and then you get charged per ounce for what you pour. Okay. The average cost for those beers was a little high. It was 55 cents an ounce. So a pint is going to cost you about $8.
So it's not strictly self-serve, it's more like robot serve. There is something monitoring this transaction.
You are the one actually doing the pouring from the tap.
But it also knows how much you've poured.
Yes, it sees how much you can pour, and you can pour up to, I think, 14 to 16 ounces per swipe of your card. They did have a lot of different beers, though, like a lot of places out there, lots and lots of IPAs, which I'm not a huge fan of. But for those who like it, it was an interesting experience. Would I go back? I probably will. I do want to show my girlfriend this because it's just something different that we haven't experienced together, and she enjoys different things with beer. So
yeah, I'd be interested just for like the logistics of that dispensing system. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, there's got to be a lot of behind the scenes with that, which I'd like to maybe learn a little bit more about. But one benefit is it's not a perfect system because my card stopped working after my first pour, and I ended up getting a free beer out of it. So can't complain too much. So that was kind of fun. But getting back to the concert that we were there to actually go see that night, it was actually longer than I anticipated. It was 2 hours of piano music.
Damn.
So they had they only covered Final Fantasies 4 through 15. I was very sad that they didn't have anything from Final Fantasies 1, 2, or 3. But they had at least 2 songs for most of the games.
Yeah, I feel like Eternal Wind would be great for a piano concert.
Eternal Wind or a Crystal Tower.
Yeah. I would love to hear. There probably is a piano arrangement of those, but I'd love to hear that in a concert setting.
TPR on the Spotify playlist, I think, has a number of 1, 2, and 3 songs that they have renditions of, and I know for a fact that a New World Final Fantasy does songs from those 3 games, so it is possible, and they do exist. Yeah. And we have listened to them here on Phoenix Sound Radio.
Going to like a symphonic or a piano concert, there is this like really kind of nice, elegant, fancy feeling to it.
So I will say most of the people,
it's the type of thing that I would want to get dressed up for.
Most of the people there were in jeans and t-shirts and there were a few people who were cosplaying as Unsundered. So they had the Ascian robes and masks, which is very cool. Shout out to you guys if you're listening by some odd chance. I did find a few people who played 14, and I did actually mention the podcast. So if you guys happen to be listening to this show, welcome. It was a pleasure to meet you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy what you listen to or have been listening to if you're checking on some of the backlog.
I suppose something like that does actually make the most sense for a vaguely formal setting. Also, Also, as much as I like the fancy dress up, I do appreciate these things becoming more accessible to like everyone. So like if you want to go in jeans, as long as it's not like ripped up and stained stuff, go for it.
I did contemplate
democratize culture.
I did contemplate if I wanted to wear my Red Mage cosplay there, but sitting for 2 hours with a bustle on your butt, not very comfortable. So I opted out of it.
You know what might be interesting to do is if you could like reimagine or redo some of it as a not necessarily like game accurate, but like inspired by as a regular formal thing that you could use for other situations. That could be fun.
I have the old coat that I had for my put together Red Mage cosplay before I had this custom commissioned one. So I wore that to Distant Worlds. So, but yeah, some of the songs that they started with Prelude, obvious choice. But then they played Red Wings. They played to Xanarkand, and I'm very happy that they did because I would have rioted if they didn't play that.
That's already halfway a piano piece.
It is a piano piece.
I thought there was at least a couple other instruments in there.
Well, it's 90%
I'm not
piano.
Sure now. Yeah, I think you're right thinking about it.
And they also played a couple of Final Fantasy XIV songs. They played Heavensward, and for one of the encore songs, they played Answers. It was...
Yeah.
It was beautiful. I was kind of hoping that Susan would have busted out from the backstage and started singing, but I knew that wasn't going to happen.
I feel like that doesn't quite fit with the piano concerto vibe.
No. Well, they did it.
Susan's great.
They did it at the piano concert at FanFest. So there is precedent for it, just not with La Fille Sauvage.
I was going to say, did she come out during the piano concert? Because I know she came out during the other stuff.
She came out during the piano concerts. She sang.
It's been so long.
She sang Answers and Heavensward. In fact,
I mostly remember that she was wearing leather pants, and I was like, "Yep, that's Susan Calloway.
I thought she was wearing a dress.
She was wearing leather pants at one point in it.
Okay.
Like there were multiple nights of music, weren't there? Where there were multiple, because there was like the Primals concert, there was the piano concerto as a separate concert as a separate thing.
Yeah, the piano concert was the first night, and the Primals concert was the second night.
Right, and she definitely showed up at the Primals concert wearing leather pants.
Yeah, but she was at the but she did the piano concert, and I thought she was wearing a dress. But again, this was many years ago.
Also, this is perhaps not the most riveting radio, so I am happy to let it go.
Yes. Some other songs they played: "The Bombing Mission," and from 7, "Eyes on Me." The other encore song was "Vals de Fantastica." Oh.
That's from 15, was it?
That is a 15 song, and that is the Alticia city music. Beautiful song.
Honestly, for piano concertos, I really like stuff like Bombing Mission or Red Wings, where it's got a bit more of that tension or that active thing, just because so much of the piano stuff we tend to think of like this gentle, ethereal, restful type thing. So having the ones that have a bit more tension or energy to them, I feel like are a really fun way to play with it.
Yeah, 11 fans were happy to hear the Ronfar theme, as well as the theme from the Tavnazian Archipelago.
They always do Ron Fowler. I want to hear Gustaberg every so often.
But I mean, I do love the song, the sound of that zone theme though.
It's classic. It's just also a little bit like, okay, it's a medieval fantasy. We get it.
But I think one of the one that a lot of people enjoyed, myself included, was Mambo de Chocobo from Final Fantasy V.
It wouldn't be a Final Fantasy concert without a Chocobo theme somewhere in
there.
there.
We didn't get Moogles though. I was kind of sad we didn't get Moogles.
Aww.
But that's all right. There was a lot more songs that they played. They played about 24 songs in that 2 hours. So it was a well done concert. I would strongly recommend if they are coming to your area, check to see if tickets are available. It was a really good show, and if they come around again, check them out. So
go get some culture, people.
I hope that this becomes an ongoing thing now, where they're going to make different tours like they do with A New World and Distant Worlds. So
I mean. Game music in general is becoming a much more accepted part of the culture.
Absolutely.
The classical station that I listen to regularly includes game music in a lot of their playing, including the end of the year. They will have like a voted event for the most popular songs, and game stuff ends in there a fair bit.
Okay.
I think the Chrono Trigger End of Time music actually gets used during one of their commercial promos. Like they have it as the underlying thing for it. Yeah, well, it's this nice, reasonably unobtrusive, but I've heard it's like, oh no, that's absolutely the end of time. I know those.
Very nice.
So like, it's so strange having grown up in a time where, like years ago, where the general perception was, oh, game music? Why would you want to think for that? That's just like arcade blips and the like. And seeing how much of an accepted part of the culture it's become really makes me happy.
And for those interested, I did just pop a link in the chat. It's from a review of the show that was held in San Francisco, written by Quentin H. from the website Operation Rainfall. So give that a read and read what their thoughts were on the show. I enjoyed it. I think Nick Nar enjoyed it. And like I said, if they're come around again, I'll definitely check it out again. So it was a good time.
It's nice to see the takes that other people have on this to get kind of that shared experience aspect of it.
Yep. Just a little bit of show news for you guys. As a reminder, there will be no show in 2 weeks on April 8th, as Nick Nar and I and a few friends will be at a Anime Detour in Minneapolis. So just because it would be very logistically difficult to get everything set up. Not that it would be impossible to do. It just doesn't quite fit the same aesthetic to have a podcast at Detour as it would have to have it at FanFest if we were going.
Yeah. Like having the podcast at an event that is specifically a Final Fantasy event works. But for a more general one, it feels like a harder sell.
Or even if it was an event that had a large, a specific piece from Final Fantasy, like if we were at PAX, I would definitely do a podcast from PAX. So we could report directly on like the Final Fantasy 14, 16, 7 remake news type of thing. So
all that fun stuff.
But being detours, we're gonna just be there to have fun with friends and get drunk and party. I'd rather not have to worry about getting a podcast set up that night. So we'll be returning to our normal schedule 2 weeks after that. So look forward to that.
Klauss would be pretty funny though.
But I'm also the one running all of the logistics for the podcast.
Yeah, it's a complicated factor. It would have been funny though.
If somebody else were running the board, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, drunk Klauss should not be running the board. That would end very poorly.
It's all we're gonna get is end.
That's what she said.
All show. That's all it's gonna be.
At some point, you just fall asleep on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to be good radio. Okay. Point taken.
So we're gonna have some fun in a week and a half. You guys enjoy your weekend as well, and we'll be back to our regular shenanigans 2 weeks after that. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Nick Nar, Aurori, Ravenheart, and Mika. Let's go ahead and jump into a very news-packed game and community news section.
A lot happened the last couple of weeks.
Lots of stuff happened. Apparently, there's going to be a changing of the guard for the producer of Final Fantasy XI, as they are going to jump into a maintenance mode, so to speak. This article comes from rockpapershotgun.com and is written by Klauss and Seyrr. So the where did I put my notes here? There we go. After 20 years of support, Square Enix is putting Final Fantasy XI in maintenance mode, meaning servers will stay up and it will remain playable, but with limited support. Basically, they're going to not be creating a lot of new content for the game. There no longer be any new expansion packs, things like that. Any major hiccups or issues will be dealt with, but the game is just going to kind of continue until it gets sunset.
Yeah, I remember back when Rhapsodies of Vana'diel came out, there was the announcement effectively that there wasn't going to be much more, and then they kept it going with regular updates, with the Voracious Resurgence as a new set of story missions. I am genuinely impressed that they've kept it going for this long. 2 decades for an MMO.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to, granted, yeah, there are a few MMOs that have been out there for this long. Like, I think Ultima Online is still going. EverQuest has some very limited support, I think, right now. But yeah, to see Final Fantasy XI still with a pretty decent player base and a decent amount of support from Square Enix, it's amazing after 20 years of release. Along with this news, they reported that the Final Fantasy XI team will be shuffling around, like I said, as Yoji Fujito is going to replace Akihiko Matsui as lead producer. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, Matsui-san, but Fujito is going to be taking over that role, since it's, I believe Matsui is going to be taking a different director position within Square Enix as one of their business development units, and probably taking over some other games.
Yeah, given the amount of talent that they had continuing to develop stuff on there, I'm sure they're excited for the chance to free up some of those resources to work on other projects.
Absolutely. And they're going to be replacing a bunch of the back-end hardware to ensure long-term stability of operations, though that will cause some long-term, longer maintenance windows than what the players might be used to at this point. It's going to be similar to like when we have major data center upgrades for Final Fantasy 14.
I think we're due. 14 is due for one of those soon as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a minute.
Okay. And I have heard some speculation about whether that hardware would be going to the 11 servers.
I think you and I actually talked about that on Saturday.
We are not the only ones who have.
But yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, because the hardware from the 14 servers probably can still go for quite a while, but because 14 is actually getting a lot of popularity, they're needing to increase the the sturdiness of said hardware, so it will work great on a less on a game that needs less strenuous
I have no
hardware.
idea what those requirements look like, and
It's
if they
crazy.
even can switch the things across, but it's a fun thought.
Well, I mean, hardware is hardware for the most part. It's what you put onto it that runs it that determines what it'll do. for the most part.
Yeah.
Bunch of Final Fantasy 14 news. Hatching Tide started yesterday, I believe, or maybe on Monday.
Day before.
Started on Monday. Copy in the link from the Lodestone.
It took less than 24 hours for people to ruin it. I'm so proud of them.
So what color did you dye your penis,
mentioned, the event is As previously mentioned, the event is Tunberry themed. A bit of an odd combination for what's ostensibly an Easter event, but as a Tunberry lover, I'm very happy to see them get their due.
Mm-hmm. And like I said as you were talking over me, what color did you dye your penis, Seyrr?
I keep my Tunberry like classic colors because I have love for them.
You have much
respect
respect
the Tun Buddies.
Yes, Ton Buddies are amazing. I love Ton Buddies too, but yes.
But yes, a lot of people discovered that dyeing stuff in various flesh tones, the Tunberry silhouette also looks like various parts of the anatomy. The community has been handling this with all the maturity that you would expect.
Yeah, none.
Is negative an amount that works here? I feel like negative could be an amount that works here.
Yeah, negative numbers are real numbers.
There we go then.
But but Yoshida-san says, "Don't be a dick."
Possibly literally.
So yeah.
In addition to the costume, they also have a Frighten emote to go with that Tunberry vibe, as well as the an orchestrion role for Papaya Demastered, taking that favorite Hatching Tide music and turning it into a more like chiptune version, I think is the term I want here.
Didn't they already do a chiptune version of Papaya?
But I don't think it was available as an orchestrion role until now.
So is it the same version that they had in that game with Ziggy or Jiggy?
I believe
or
so.
Iggy? Oh, nice.
Yep, the 8-bit remix.
Okay.
So now you can have that playing like on your island sanctuary or in the midst of your production of Hamlet.
All right. More fun Final Fantasy 14 news. Letter from the Producer Live, I believe I wrote this one as 76, is going to be on Friday at 4 a.m. Pacific time.
I might end up staying up that late, but it's not because I've been trying to. It just keeps happening.
No, I'll be awake at that time because I'll be awake at that time, but I'm probably not going to be watching it. We'll look for Nova Crystallis or Gamer Escapes review coverage on that, and we'll talk about that if it even makes sense to talk about it when the next podcast episode comes live. So, yep. But this is going to be patch 6.4 part 1, as well as a few miscellaneous updates. So we're going to get a little bit of information on the next patch. And just be aware that this is Japanese audio only, but some of the slides will have English and Japanese on them, so we can glean a little bit out of it. But there will also be a digest from the Square Enix team at a later date, so look forward to that.
It is pretty great how they went from, okay, we're just providing this and there'll be no translation, to, okay, we'll start doing a translation. Possibly in part because translations were happening anyways, and they at least wanted to get an official one out there to prevent misinterpretations.
Yeah. Then the next bit of news from Final Fantasy XIV is regarding the 24-hour data center maintenance for the North American data centers starting April 3rd at 3 a.m. This is where they are going to be replacing a lot of the existing server and network infrastructure and upgrading it with more current servers to, kind of take over some of that additional load that the game has been experiencing from the new players.
Yeah, there's been like consistent cues to. Normally, there's like the initial rush or the initial thing after a patch release of, okay, the lines are a bit long, and then it eventually dies down. And no, I'm still consistently having a little bit of a wait to get in.
Yeah, there's usually about
a
20 to 30 person queue, and it takes like 2 minutes. But it's nice to see that the game is still popular. good chance that this could, increase the lobby server capacity. So we're maybe not going to be in queue nearly as much. But as they specified in the article, all content on the NA data centers, that'll be Aether, Crystal, Dynamis, and Primal, including all character data, will be automatically transferred to these new servers. No changes will be made to the data center world selection screens, nor to any character or world data. They're just moving it to new hardware.
I know anytime that they're going to be moving the data around, they want to give that reassurance that nothing is going to actually happen to your stuff.
Yep. And they are going to be doing extensive backups. Extensive.
God, that would be such a nightmare for an MMO if they had something happen to the character data like that. Can you imagine how angry the player base would be?
Very. But this maintenance coincides with the updates for patch 6.38. So once the servers come up, we will have a little bit of some quality of life adjustments prior to new patch 6.4 coming probably about a month-ish, month and a half. Does that sound like about right? That usually,
I think so.
We'll
honestly, time stopped meaning anything to me at some point. So yeah, why not?
About 3 years ago.
To figure out how long it is, time would have to mean something to me.
Well, I mean, anyway.
Nope. This is a pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps problem. There's nothing to be done for it.
So this past weekend, Yoshida was out at PAX East talking about Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy XVI, which he is the executive producer of both. And in Yoshida fashion, he decided to troll everybody when he's asked the question, will Final Fantasy XIV get a Final Fantasy XVI crossover?
Hey, don't do the voice. It's a legit question.
Well, but when he hears it 3,000 times, when are we going to get that crossover?
You can do the voice a little bit as a treat.
This article comes from massivelyop.com, written by Elliot Lefebvre, and I love Yoshida's quote. With Final Fantasy 16 on the way, it makes logical sense that people would ask producer and director Naoki Yoshida if Final Fantasy 14 would feature some sort of crossover event. During today's PAX events panel, he explained that he would love to do a crossover, but first needs to acquire permission and collaboration of Final Fantasy 16's producer. Fortunately, previous interviews with Final Fantasy XVI's producer Naoki Yoshida have indicated that he feels much the same, so all that remains is to get both producers in the same room to work out the details. Yes, that is how he actually answers the question.
Consistently, he really seems to like that joke.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him one bit. It's freaking hilarious. It is gold.
Yep. There's the meme that goes around of someone coming into a boss's office to ask for permission on a thing, place a proposal in front of them, and then walking around to the other side of the desk to approve it. And that has been getting plenty of play with this.
But yes, I'm excited to see what we get for the Final Fantasy 16 crossover. It should be really fun.
Mm-hmm. I know with the 15 one, they played on the fact that the same primal appears in some of the same primals appear in 15 as well, and so playing up the differences and similarities between them. Given the importance of the icon, the fact that they're even called icons in 16, I do wonder if they'll maybe play around a little bit with that again.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
All right, and this next bit, before PAX East, SE had released another trailer for Final Fantasy 16, and they showed off its most amazing mechanic, the squeeze through mechanic. This article comes from Kotaku.com and is written by CC Jiang. While showing us more previews of its real-time battle system, they show off the new Torgal Wolf Buddy and stills of its gorgeous landscapes, but they also showed that it's going to have this shimmy through small spaces mechanic of, it's basically a loading screen.
They did something similar in
15 had it, and 7 Remake had it.
Yeah. So that particular thing isn't especially new.
No.
Thing some of the discussion that I saw suggested that the actual point of it was while showing off our canine companions, giving them the chance to demonstrate that they can indicate points of interest as you explore.
Yeah, they were showing that part off, but then there's like, ooh, look at him look at Clive crawling through that crawl space. Ooh, that is so slick. Well, I mean, though I will say, they really don't have the time to put in like a loading screen per se, because with the SSDs in current systems and consoles, the games are just loading so fast. It's absolutely just crazy.
Yeah, given how quickly this stuff loads, they may need something to do a transition, but if you can have it happen that quickly, having a loading screen that takes you out of the action, takes you out of like the feeling of being in that world, seems like something that they would want to avoid. So it makes sense that they've gone to some. I mean, honestly, Final Fantasy 14 1.0, which had the no zone lines, did something similar where there were narrow passageways between areas that were used to disguise loading.
Yep, basically you were just running through this little hallway as the next zone's information was loading in, and once it came in, then the hallway would disappear and the zone would open up.
It wasn't quite a hallway. Like there was one I remember going through several times out in the deserts of Thanalan, where it was just a narrow canyon. It was like didn't look like a hallway. It was like a natural passageway with all of that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to speak, a hallway, a narrow corridor.
Okay, corridor. I'm okay. Mostly hallway makes it sound like they went into some type of
Okay. A chasm
this
or
is me,
corridor.
Yeah, I'm being overly particular about my terminology. It's what I do.
I'm Seyrr and I'm pedantic.
Have you been reading my diary?
Loading tunnels, that's a good way to put it, Triss.
Yeah, loading tunnels. Yeah, I'm okay with tunnels. That works.
Without necessarily having a top on them, but yeah, you get what we're trying to say.
Overthinking it with Seyrr and Klauss.
Woo! That's what we do. We overthink things. So you don't have to.
But yeah, it makes sense to me that this is the way that you'd go for it, given that you can make it that quick, and it's something where you can keep the player in the action, keep them in the world. It seems like the obvious choice.
Yeah, it is what it is, and like I said, they're taking full advantage of the hardware, which they used to show off the game at PAX East. Specifically, this next article that I'm putting in from Noisy Pixel, written by Orpheus Joshua, is talking about the panel, and it actually has a link to the entire panel from PAX, which is a little over an hour long, and I love it. It's called "Yes, You Can Pet the Torgal."
I mean, there is that entire Twitter account devoted to whether you can pet the dog in various games. I believe some games have actually updated to make it possible to pet the dog after being featured on that channel or on that Twitter.
Because everybody wants to pet the Torgal, and they actually had a stuffed Torgal on site with them, and Yoshida was petting the said Torgal the entire time.
Look, people want to pet dogs. It's a thing. I remember the Wii version of A Boy and His Blob, which was kind of a very updated remastering of the original NES game. And it added, given that the Wii had so many more buttons than the NES, one of the added things did nothing except hug the blob. It would have the little boy hug the blob companion. It had no game effect. It didn't help anything. And as far as I'm concerned, you were a monster if you weren't constantly pressing it.
That's fair. But anyway, during the panel, during the panel, Yoshida and Koji Fox were discussing the gameplay. The stream was showing, it was highlighting gameplay videos and highlighting world exploration, and all of this was being done live on a PS5, which is really cool.
Yeah, having stuff fairly far along at that point, if it's if they can show live gameplay for that.
Yeah, well, what they had was a basic kind of like the gold version of the game with they were very careful what they loaded up on it, I'm sure. So
Always.
and I just linked the actual YouTube video for the panel if you want to watch it yourself. It's Yoshida and Koji Fox being Yoshida and Koji Fox, so it was pretty entertaining.
They do enjoy playing things up for the crowd, so.
Yep. I mean, they do their job well, and they love what they do, so more power to them. I'm
pretty much
really looking forward to this game on June 22nd.
God, so soon. That's less than 3 months away.
Yeah. It's start of summer is when we get to...
Man, if time meant anything, that would be weird.
Yeah. We are just under 3 months away.
Oh.
Yes.
God,
That was a lot of news. Hope you guys
Yeah,
enjoyed
well, I mean,
a lot of that.
With a major game convention happening,
Mm-hmm.
not surprising that there'd be a lot of announcements and other stuff like that going on.
All right.
Always exciting.
So for our discussion topic, we did have a small patch release, patch 6.35. What was that, about a month ago?
About, yeah.
4 weeks ago, somewhere in there.
3 weeks. Yeah. I think nearly 4 weeks at this point.
Okay.
3 or 4.
Well, I haven't touched any of it because, yeah. So Seyrr, in his infinite wisdom, who loves playing the game still, will be talking about most of this, and I think he has some other little surprises up his sleeve as well for this little discussion topic. So Seyrr, take her away.
Yeah. So yeah, like a lot of the 0.5 patches, a little bit lighter on some of the content, no MSQ, a lot of those little side stories, but some of the stuff I was really fascinated by, just in terms of what it might indicate for future directions in terms of design, in terms of what the dev team is willing to consider or revisit. So yeah, wanted to take a little bit to talk about that. So we'll start with the Hildebrand quest and relics. They have continued the trend of, or the pattern of, some Hildebrand quests, two quests at a time, interspersed with the various relic steps through each one. This Hildebrand quest line, in addition to a lot of the signature wackiness, included a role-playing segment that I think players had not expected, but when I talked to people about the quest, this was all that they could talk about.
Go on.
Yeah, a role-playing segment where we got to play as Godbert.
Ooh. I am intrigued now.
Yes.
Loading game.
The entire thing is over the top, as you would expect. Godbert takes very little damage from all attacks, has lots of very powerful moves. As with a lot of these other sequences, it ends with a limit break, which takes it into a cutscene type thing that ends up being even more over the top than usual. I really appreciate it, again, with the role-playing sequences. This is often a chance for them to do lots of fun stuff with expressing elements through the mechanics. One of the aspects I really appreciated was, while you're fighting as Godbert, Hildebrand is, of course, accompanying you, and so he's doing his shenanigans on the battlefield as well. A lot of the traditional mechanics, like there would be the stack marker dropped on you, and so of course the player moves to stack. Godbert is pretty much untouched by it. Hildebrand takes fairly heavy damage. and after the first time, Hildebrand starts running away from you when you try to go and stack with him.
I want a hug, son.
And if you leave it alone, like I did some testing of this, Godbert can take the hit himself. There's no need to suggest Hildebrand to it. But player instinct ends up having you go through the mechanics to create this comedy routine of Godbert rushing after Hildebrand, Hildebrand fleeing with panic, and then getting hit by this massive attack. So I really love how they actually set up using our expectations of how these things should go. Are things of like, oh, there's a stack marker, I need to stack, in order to play out the comedy trope.
Lovely.
Like, yeah, as someone who loves it when they start working mechanics and narrative together, there's lots of other fun elements to it, and I won't go spoiling all of them, but I was really delighted to see that they continue to embrace the insanity of it in new and interesting ways.
Nice.
Yeah, like getting to take the reins of the legendary goldsmith hammer. Really fun time.
Okay, so now that's gonna have everybody wanting to play as Julian now.
Oh my god, if they do give us a role-played segment with Julian, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
With the frying pan.
I mean, like, I feel like the fry pan would be her limit break, but I don't know what else. Oh god, how would they go about that? Because, I mean, Godbird has shown off enough superhuman stuff in general to give you a full suite of abilities. I wonder what they would do for Julian.
But remember, even Godbird is afraid of Julian.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I mean, I've always wanted to be a battle chef of some sort. This might be the closest that I get.
You're welcome.
These shenanigans that we go through in the actual quest do end up giving Godbird that bit of inspiration that he needs for the next line of the Manderville weapons, which this is the bit that had been a bit more controversial with the player base, because aside from a couple scenes where Geralt is being taught about the techniques in question, the next step of the relics ends up being another 1500 astronomy tomes. This is something where, like, there's been I've heard some more displeasure being expressed that we've had two steps that are just directly, okay, get these tomestones, use it to buy these things.
But in SC's defense, what it does is it forces players to go through older content.
Well, so see, this is the thing where I started being curious about. We've got 4 or 5 expansions worth of relics at this point. And it's kind of interesting to see how those quests have changed throughout. I actually went back and dug up the original Relic Reborn quests from 1.0, which, oh my god, those things were insane grind fest. Needing to spirit bond a weapon to full, needing to a statless weapon to full.
And wasn't that during the time when spirit bond was very, very tedious?
Extremely tedious, and we didn't have things like spirit bonding potions or free company actions to help boost it along.
So you had to run through a lot of content with a shitty weapon. That's
not even the worst of it. You've got like stacks upon stacks of Beastmen currency, needing to do all the different Hamlet defenses at a fairly high level multiple times in order to get items that may or may not drop. Multiple dungeon. It was not just a lot of grind, but a lot of grind in some of the hardest duties available. For 1.0, that makes sense. This was kind of some of the last high-end content as something to keep tide people over and get them excited about, like, hey, this is a type of thing that you could expect for the game, rebuilding that trust. And so having something that was a bit of a really extreme thing, in part because you didn't want people to run through it too fast. You wanted to be something that would keep them willing to engage with it for a bit and see if it was something that kept them engaged enough to keep coming back.
So question, was this something that they also implemented in stages as well, or did they just release the entirety of the quest line at once?
I believe the entirety of it was released at once.
So was that part of like the 1.23 patch or something a little earlier?
It was towards the end. It was one of the later patches because this was when you had all of the different primals available. You had all the different dungeons that they would have had. It was kind of sampling a bit of every single bit of content in the game.
But when you say all of the primals, you mean Garuda and Ifrit?
They actually created an Ifrit Extreme specifically for the Relic quest back then.
Yay.
So yeah, that was kind of the first thing of like, hey, it's a tour of all the different content available, including these really challenging things. They used a lot of the same steps for a Relic Reborn in 2.0, and in fact, it made it a little bit easier for them to do some parts of that just because it had already been built out for them. The steps that we follow for that up through the primals mimic a lot of the stuff that was in 1.0, but then they added to that with the Zodiac weapons, the things of like farming up Atma, gathering light density or gathering light in various dungeons, things like that. And a lot of it was, again, hey, do lots of content, do this stuff over and over, do these various types of dungeons, do fates, all the stuff like that.
Don't
so a lot of it
forget
was really
the books.
I mean, the books were also do this various content. It was, and you saw that again with the Heavensward relics, the anima weapons, where there was the run of various dungeons to do. There were various items that you would buy with tomestones, that you could also buy them with tribal currency. It was, again, okay, do all of the different content for that. They offered a couple more options of how you would get at some of them. So if there were activities you really didn't like, you could substitute in a tombstone grind, though it was usually the case that it would be, I mean, it depends on how much you liked were willing to put up with the tombstone grind. Now, for Stormblood and then for Shadowbringers, you had something where they instead linked the relics to this kind of additional field content. The Forbidden Island Eureka in Stormblood, and Save the Queen, the Boston Southern Front and Zadnor and the Lubrum Regine in Shadowbringers. And while there were options for obtaining the stuff through doing fates or dungeons or other things like that as you had before, the way it ended up working really drove people towards, okay, do this content, do Eureka, do Bosja. It's going to be so much faster.
Brought him into new content, which was nice for those of us who were tired of running old content, but it made it difficult for new players coming in to sometimes get the cues that they needed for some of the older pieces of some of those dungeons that we're not running as much.
Yeah. And I mean, this is one that there's a lot of different feelings on. Some people remember very fondly the groups that they would form together, the commiserating with others in Eureka or in Bosja as they were doing this. So it's a lot of people who are decrying the current state of the Relic quests. This is the time that they were really thinking about. It was something that really, it asked a bit more. It asked you to be doing some very specific content. But if you were already interested in that content, it was something that you were able to get a lot of different rewards for. So it really did seem to cater a little bit more towards people who would be okay with doing this content, in part, again, because it seemed like they maybe wanted to help drive people towards, give them a motivation to do that content, to go through Eureka or to help out the Boston resistance.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed those areas, myself, I wanted to get through the storyline of those to understand it. See what they were trying to, accomplish with it. I liked Eureka more, I think, than I liked the Bosjan Southern Front.
Yeah. And I mean, some people are divided on which one they like better. I know one person who absolutely loathed Eureka, but also really wanted the dyeable artifact armor that came from it. Stormblood's ability to dye the artifact armor had to be done by doing Eureka, and so he was extremely stressed about the whole thing, having to do this content that he didn't really like because it was the only way to get that.
But you could also get a scorpion harness.
Oh God, do not start. I have enough 11 trauma. I went over a decade without getting a scorpion harness, and I am okay with it. And when one dropped into my inventory in Final Fantasy XIV, I felt a little bit dirty, damn it.
Why didn't you have a scorpion harness in 11, Seyrr?
They were ugly.
What are you talking about? They're amazing looking. I loved the look on those. My red mage wore one quite a bit, actually.
Okay, we got some red mage side boob here, because that thing was also known as the side boob harness.
Well, I mean, I had a male character, though, so.
There was a little bit of male side boob on them.
Yeah, but nowhere near what the female models had.
But so it seems like, again, looking over a lot of those old Relic quests, a lot of them did have okay, you're going to buy some of these components with tomestones, and there's this other option for how to do it, but the tomestone grind is an option. And in so many cases, players went for the tomestone grind anyways, because that would be the one that was not day or time limited. So given that, it's not necessarily surprising that they said, all right, you know what? Sure, let's just go ahead and make it outright. Do whatever you like to do to get the tomestones, turn in the tomestones for the thing. there's part of me that feels like this is just responding to what players had already been doing. But it is definitely not without controversy. I do wonder if that's going to, because it seems like they have other systems to direct people towards to make sure that they're getting enough people running the various types of content to supply the newbies. And for that matter, having things like duty support. So even if there aren't people available to run it, you can just get duty support to see you through. So maybe it feels a little like there's less need to use the Relic weapons had been used, I feel like, in part to help push people towards other content that they might have wanted them to do for whatever reason. Whether it's the run these dungeons so that there's people available for it, or whether it's the do this battlefield content. And it seems like maybe there's less need for that, so then it becomes do what you like. We're good. I don't know, but it's interesting to see that and to the thing about if what they want to try to incentivize players towards has changed. All right. So we also have, for those who like the relic type grinds, we introduced the Splendorous tools, which bring us back to Norvrant, where Moen's Boutique of Splendors is teaming up with the legendary artisan Grenell to create crafting tools that will be like part of the big forefront in helping Norvrant continue to recover from the effects of the flood. These quest lines themselves, lots of goofy moments, lots of playing up how we have this reflected version of Rowena and Geralt. The amount of times that they keep making like little bit of moony eyes at each other or making comments that the other is shocked about, like, wait, that's how you feel about me? With our character in the background watching all of this with a shit-eating grin.
Yay.
Yeah, they really lean heavily on just how different these ones are from the ones that we know and how bemused our character is by the entire thing. Amusingly enough, there's a couple lines in there that suggest that some of the dreams and inspiration that Grenell has are through somehow viewing the things that have happened to his source counterpart. He mentions
God,
a dream.
that poor man.
He mentions a dream where like a very buff older man was pouring oil over him, and this gave him inspiration for how to solve a problem with the tools. The grind itself is yeah. So they are definitely playing up a bit more of the world's reflection of each other and the hey, here's these characters, but what if?
I wonder how many of his nightmares were fueled by, Geralt's drunken stupors.
I mean, that's the thing. He doesn't even describe them as nightmares, just odd dreams. He doesn't even seem especially traumatized by them.
Or so he leads you to believe.
He did also, Grenell of the Norvrant did also mention that he's a teetotaler. Yeah. So that's a fun little detail there.
Well, I think, wasn't that mentioned in Stormblood or in Shadowbringers itself?
I forget if it was, but it was at least confirmed again here. And we know that Moen's Boutique of Splendors focuses on honesty and fair dealings between all, and coming into business, these business arrangements with everyone knowing what's going on and like no one be exploiting the other. So definitely a bit of a different business relationship there. The tools themselves, we have the first two stages available at this point, and it pretty much looks like the Sky Steel tools in terms of crafting collectibles with a particular rating or gathering items with a sufficient rating. A lot of the stuff is sourced from Norvrant, which is a nice touch given that these are supposed to be things that are being built with resources on the first, actually requiring us to stick in the first to get them.
That's good.
Yeah. The crafting requirements, I don't know how onerous they are because I already had a fully melded set of gear, so I don't actually know how difficult stuff is for people who aren't at the cutting edge of things.
Ooh, I'm Seyrr and I'm really big into crafting. Yeah.
Again, stop reading my diary.
No.
Rude. I did appreciate that if you're able to max out your collectible ratings, that you do end up obtaining parts at triple the normal rate.
That's nice because a lot of that requires a lot of stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot less of a grind. The materials are, again, specialty materials bought with white script. And then for the first stage, just some basic raw materials. For the second, a crafted material, so you can use high quality materials as your components to get a bit of a boost on it, though that only gives you up to 30% quality start.
And the items that are created are untradeable, correct?
Yep, as usual, it's a collectible that cannot be traded, can only be turned in. In this case, connoisseurs items, various specialty items to give to the Boutique of Splendors, which they will trade to various Norvrant collectors in order to get the components needed for your new tool. Now, the tools themselves also have they're doing something that we haven't seen in this game since 1.0. These tools, the stage that we can get them to, have non-statistical benefits to them. For instance, the crystalline fishing rod, in addition to having the usual gathering and perception boosts that a gathering tool would have, notes that it has a chance to reduce the GP cost of powerful hook set and precision hook set by 50%. So in addition to just the usual stat things, there's an actual, here's a little ability of it. My crystalline fry pan increases to quality are 1.75 times higher than normal when material condition is good. Normally, normally normally you get a 50% boost to your quality gains when it is under good quality. But with that crystalline tool, that adaptive tool for the stage of it, it becomes a 75% gain.
Nice. Does it do anything additional for excellent or no?
Just for good. It's possible that later stages will play with this, but this is something we haven't seen in a long time. It was back in 1.0 where we had things like, for instance, I was looking at the original artifact armor. Stuff like the healer's robe had the effect of enhances cure, or the healer's culottes of reduces presence of mind recast. Or the relic weapon, the Artemis bow, of increases song duration. Songs worked a bit differently back then, of course. But yeah, this, and a lot of this, again, it feels like it goes back to, so veterans of Final Fantasy XI know that there's nothing that restricts when you can change your gear. And so it would be common to pretty much change your entire outfit for every ability you use. If you're going to be using on Thief using sneak attack, you swap out all the stuff to put on pieces that enhance the effect of sneak attack. And then you swap back into your regular melee auto attack. Stuff like that.
Like my red mage, I had all of the elemental staves that I would swap in when I'm casting certain spells.
Yeah. You change staves for every element of the spell, or if it's enhancing spell, you'd start putting on all of your enhancing gear.
Yep. Like those macros were insane.
Yeah. You would have people constantly changing and blinking in and out of battle as their models shifted for whichever piece of gear they needed for this.
Which, when you were the healer, you absolutely hated, because then you would lose them for a moment and then you had to reacquire them. And then that's why, well, otherwise, you know, a lot of times we would just set our macros to cast to a specific player point, so it would always hit the same person in that slot. So
yeah, this is at least a major part of why Windower and other third-party tools really took off in Final Fantasy XI, because given that each macro you would typically want to be switching half or more of your equipment loadout, that would quickly exceed the in-game macro length that you could write. And so just to have something to manage all this. And then we got to Final Fantasy XIV, where one of the things they changed was you cannot change equipment when in mid-battle.
Yep.
Because I don't think they had even considered that when in 11, and it led to this completely unexpected set of circumstances. And so nip that in the bud first thing.
Yeah, it was one of the first things that I tried to do when I played 1.0 was swap in different things to try and increase my, the effects of certain attacks. And what do you mean I can't change this? What's going on here? What is this strange?
I should be able to throw off all of my clothing and throw on a completely different set in between swings of my sword.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing it for the last 8 years.
It sounds batshit insane when you say it.
Yeah, but I mean,
but so yeah. But it's one of those things that we just kind of come to accept. And that also meant that when you started having gear that would have these types of effects that could be harder to measure, stuff like, okay, how much benefit is there to something that increases song duration as compared to a different weapon that you can meld more materia into? As part of the push towards making those game systems more understandable for the players, we've gone the past however many years with most like gear that mostly has set stats, where some of those stats have actually been trimmed out, stuff like the elemental resistance or the that was another one back in 1.0. Like, I'm looking again at some of these artifact pieces, and the healer ones had stuff like healing magic potency plus 25 or attack magic potency minus 5, which I guess bit of a trade-off there. Enhancing magic potency, all the stuff where they have those kinds of things, and again being simplified a bit to this point where most people understand the stat weights pretty well. So it's interesting to see that they're bringing back something where, hey, it's not just a straight up statistical thing where they actually have a special ability on it that might be harder to do the math on, but also feels like, hey, when I'm using this thing, I can better take advantage of these moments in crafting, and these things come out better. Hey, when I'm using this fishing rod, sometimes it's a little bit easier for me to pull that hook in the special way. It's adding a little bit more of those fun elements, some of those things that add a little bit more of the class fantasy. I do see that they're doing it on the crafting and gathering stuff and not on the combat, but I do wonder if it might be a bit of a change in attitude of what types of things they're willing to consider.
Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting point. Though, like I said, the fact that they had it in the past and then they threw it off for the most part when Realm Reborn came out. I mean, and they totally got rid of it within Heaven's Word and Beyond.
Yeah. It is interesting that they're dipping their toe back into this pool. I wonder if it's sort of okay, it swung too far, this stuff is too uninteresting, or they might just keep it to crafting and gathering stuff where it hurts a little bit less.
That's my guess is what they'll probably end up doing, because the PvP stuff and the PvE,
back when there was like separate gear for PvP, that was a thing once upon a time.
Yeah, that wasn't just glamour.
Yeah,
but and that all had very specialized different stats on it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But those people want a pretty homogenous. I don't know if they want if homogenous is the right word, but they want a consistent.
And there's an argument for the players that you should have some idea of how things are going to behave, that it shouldn't be too opaque, because that can just be less fun of a game when you don't know what's going wrong and you don't know what to improve and you don't know if this thing you're doing is actually helping.
And for the most part, the battle systems of Final Fantasy XIV, it's very vertical. Your gear will become obsolete the higher level you get, the further within the story you progress. Your gear will become obsolete unless you want it just for glamours.
Yeah, which, like, fun comparison again to FF11, where a decade on, even after the level cap had been raised from 75 to 99, where it had sat for a very long time, you were still having situations where a level 24 armor piece was the best in slot for certain characters under certain circumstances.
Level 7 leaping boots. Anyone?
I was thinking of Emperor Hairpin, but yes, the leaping boots, that was another one.
Or the what jaggedy eared Jack's little
rabbit charm.
Yeah.
Or the defending ring, which again was from an endgame, but it was from endgame of like the original base stuff. Was defending ring level 50?
I think it was level 50, wasn't it? Wasn't that from That came from Dark. No, maybe it was 75.
It was 70. It
70,
came from
okay.
King Behemoth.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. In yeah, if you could ever get him to spawn.
I mean, you could get him to spawn. It was if you could ever get him to claim, because oh my god, was that a wild west back then?
Yeah, that was even worse because yeah, you could not attack a claimed monster.
H&M camping, everyone loves it. And by loves, I mean has a deeply abusive relationship with it that I never fully understood.
That's why
I never got into H&M camping, and I still feel I made the right choice.
I did a little bit, but on some of the older stuff that where I actually maybe had a small chance. And it seemed like the bigger ones, you wanted to at least have somebody in the party who was a ranger.
Yeah.
So you get that
like
wide scan.
Yep. And that was another one that really ended up pressuring players towards a lot of that third-party tool usage.
Yeah, it did. But it is what it is. I mean, they've learned a lot from the things that they've done in past games, and they're seeing that, you know, some of it maybe wasn't all that bad.
Yeah, or maybe just like at this point, like I know I've certainly had the feel like, okay, it's going all, but at the same time, a lot of this is just number go up, and then I choose the fashion that I like, which is like I was genuinely excited to be like, oh hey, I got this botany axe that makes it much easier to get intuition on collectibles. I can hit the jackpot on this much more. Yes, I could technically do out the math on yada yada yada, but I don't want to do that. This is fun. This lets me play with this whole image of my character as doing these things, and I like it.
Yeah, it adds an extra level of complexity and you know, interestingness. Yeah. That's not a word I know, but you know, it adds a little bit of that to the crafting and gathering portion, the very optional part of the game where SE is seeing a lot of the real diehards are still jumping in, like you, Seyrr. No, I mean this is content, and the way they're designing it, this is for some of the OGs of Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh yeah, let's not talk about how long I spent gathering whetstones earlier. I auto-crafted some stuff, but then I used the NQs to make stuff for white scripts, while I can use the HQs for actually making the tools. I've got an entire system here. Let me show you my charts.
And on that note...
and... So yes, the Splendorous tools, again, we just have the first leg at this point, so it'll be interesting to see what other abilities they add, if they might add other elements to the quest, given that, again, it's the crafting or gathering collectibles, if they may add further wrinkles to it. I know later on in Skysteel Tools, they did add ones that were actually expert level recipes. I forget. Actually, I've got it open here. I can look right now.
And this is what happens when I give Seyrr too much leeway in what to do for the discussion topic, folks.
Oh yeah, no, they did end up start having expert level quests crafts at the end of it.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on a little bit.
Yes,
we got a couple of small things to talk about before we end this.
Yep.
So,
there was the Loperit quests that were added. In terms of the Crafting Beast Tribe quest, nothing particularly special to report. It's what we've seen before. It's the thing that if you are interested in crafting, but you're new to the game, or you've just fallen behind for whatever reason, gives you a chance to catch up. Does give us a lot more interesting depth on the Loperits. The quest, the storyline follows their attempt to find meaning in their lives, given that their whole, hey, we're going to be these people shepherding the people of Etheris to this new to a new life and acting this thing for them. Given that that's no longer happening, and a lot of them becoming listless and trying to find purpose, and some of the ways who attempt to give them things to give purpose to their lives. And so we get to see a lot of the various ways pursuing creative options, playing around with different things. One part has them actually doing a collaborative mural that is just the cutest thing I have ever seen, and also really sweet and touching in some ways. So, taking these super cute the super cute tribe that everyone has been enamored with, and adding a lot of really fun and interesting depth to them.
Plus the fact that it allows you to catch up on crafting, which a lot of people maybe aren't as in-depth on it as you are. This is a perfect opportunity for me to get all of my crafters up to 90, so.
Yep. Plus, you can get yourself a flashing rainbow rug to use as a disco floor in your house.
Disco.
Ah, yep. Lots of the usual cute rewards. As I said, in terms of mechanics and other stuff like that, it's nothing we haven't seen before, but the story is really fun and engaging.
Anything else that really, piqued your interest in 635?
So there is one other. I won't go too in depth into it, ironically, but we do have the new leg of the deep dungeon, Eureka Orthos.
Okay.
That is a deep dungeon underneath the Crystal Tower. Gives us a lot more chance to explore various elements of the Alligans, which we'd spent so much time focusing on the ancients, we forgot what this game was really all about originally. Blaming the Alligans for everything that ever went wrong.
I thought it was Asians. You want to blame the Asians for everything.
I
and
mean,
then it became the Alligans.
I mean, it's the 4 A's. Asians, Alligans, Ancients, Ether. It's one of those 4 things.
Ah.
That does cover pretty much 99% of eventualities.
And everybody else is just an asshole.
The system works. The big thing about it is, and there was a great interview on the dev blog with Angelus Demonus. I don't know how they actually pronounce their name. A very noted deep dungeon soloist who has completed Heaven on High and Palace of the Dead solo runs with, I believe, every job at this point.
Ooh.
And has done several of Eureka Orthos full dives on solo. But really interesting one on the dev blog. Let me actually grab Klaus, if you wouldn't mind tossing this into the chat, because I do not have that loaded up right this moment. But great read if you enjoy deep dungeon stuff at all. But one of the things that he pointed out, and this bears my experiences with it, is this one is a bit more brutal. It's fucking around a lot less. It is definitely a fuck around and find out type one. A lot more monsters with one-hit KO mechanics. Whether literally or just it will do an extreme amount of damage. A lot more needing to carefully test stuff and figure out how it works. There's much more an expectation. I've had several wipes with different groups. And some of them because we didn't know what a thing did yet and pretty much had to test it out and got a very fast object lesson on what we need to be watching for next time. And in a couple cases because people were used to stuff like Heaven on High, where like if you have fast enough reactions or get away from things or stuff like that, you can pretty much deal with whatever. It's like, no, you need to know what you're doing and you need to take it seriously. So for people who want to go a little bit more hardcore in their deep dungeoning, it comes at you hard.
That's what she said.
I have been acting as the wayfinder for a couple different friend groups, and I definitely have these ones are fine, and you can probably pull multiples as long as you do this. Oh no, this is one that we do one at a time. This is one that the moment something goes slightly off, I am going to start using Pomanders. Use Pomanders. Don't stockpile them. Don't do the Mega Elixir problem. The bonus ones, Heaven on High soloers, or Heaven on High players, not just soloers, may remember they had those primal summons, the simulated versions of Ifrit, Garuda, and Titan that would clear out a floor.
Mm-hmm.
They've taken a bit of a different tack on it this time. You can now get, instead you'll get demi-clones that will summon a demi-clone of Doga, Une, or an Onion Knight, who will act as an accompany whichever person used it for the rest of that floor. They bust out some pretty powerful abilities. Doga is a black mage who will petrify enemies. Une acts as a white mage, still using plenty of attack spells, but also casts Stone Skin on the party regularly. Both of them act as really good supports. I've only seen Onion Knight once, and I didn't actually get the chance to observe what he was doing, so I don't know.
Okay.
In the setting, Onion Knights were mechanical soldiers made by the Alligans, so they had stuff to fight their wars for them. But yeah, lots of fun stuff going on in there. Definitely take a bit more care. A lot of observing monsters, noting what abilities they're using is going to be important. There's a lot more interruptible and stunnable moves. So yeah, for those who do want that challenge, I've honestly been having a lot of fun with it. I've also been very aggravated at people who's like, no, stop fighting the thing. Don't try to do this solo challenge here. Stuff's respawning.
And dead.
Yeah. I also had one run that we had a miracle revive. Like someone managed to hold off a bunch of stuff and pull off a miracle revival and saving of the run, and that person got all the commends at the end. So if you like those moments of thrills, I can totally recommend the Steep Dungeon. Just take it seriously. It goes hard.
Yeah, I mean it's been good content. So I'll give this one a try. I'm gonna do the Loprit quests.
And
I'm
for
gonna
those,
work my relic.
again, for those who do like the Alligans, we're getting a lot more details about some of their various technologies, some of the stuff they were doing, a lot more filling out the details of this culture that was also really important to the game story.
Alligans.
God, that ancient aliens meme fits so well.
Alligans. Asians.
Plus, you've got your usual deep dungeon rewards, though I fireworks this time around. Like an occasional firework, but I've got lots of other cute stuff too.
Cool.
So yeah, lots of stuff that seems a little light at first, but there's a lot of interesting possible indications as to what direction they're looking for future development, what they're willing to play with. Kind of exciting. I'm looking forward to a lot of stuff that we might get to expect as a result of what we've seen in this patch.
Cool. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they want to be able to do with this game and keep it going. So, you know, let's I'm hoping that they don't stop on their laurels and they keep moving things forward for us and make the changes that we, as the player base, want to see.
They need at least another 11 years if they're going to match FF11.
Right. Anyway, thank you so much for your very thorough dive into what was basically just a small content patch.
A good lore monger can spin like an entire tapestry out of a couple little wisps.
Yeah.
Don't look too closely at what that tapestry depicts.
No, because you're going to see all of the little things on the. Don't look on the back side of it. The front looks great and pretty. Just don't see what he did on the back side. Not pretty. Not pretty.
Also, I do feel the need to mention, oh my god, I could have delved so much deeper into some of the stuff going back to 1.0 of how they had explored various bits of that. Like, if you want to know more about this, poke me on our Discord server.
Or email us. Maybe we will get a librarian extra out of this.
Yeah.
If there's enough interest, I will have Seyrr put up something like you did for the Ballad of Gilgamesh.
Yeah, like especially with this one, I ended up talking to other 1.0 players to go way back for how a lot of stuff had been handled. It brought back a lot of memories. I have so much to say. Give me a chance to say it. Poke that sleeping bear. What could go wrong?
And on that bombshell, that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode, guys, because Seyrr poked the bear. But if you liked what you heard, please make sure to like, subscribe, or follow us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or whatever your preferred podcatcher is. And if possible, leave us a rating or review. More of these podcatchers are offering that, so it gives you the ability to let us know how we're doing and helps other people find our show. If you really dig the show, you can consider subscribing here at twitch.tv/PhoenixDown where you're going to get access to a number of subscriber-only emotes and badges. Or if you really want to support us, you can go out to patreon.com/PhoenixDown like our benevolent overlord Rory Fenrir or our secret of Nevermore Ravenheart, and support us in that way. All proceeds go towards growing the show, cover things like hosting costs, allow us to improve and upgrade our equipment, as well as do fun things like contests and giveaways. But any kind of support, whether it's emails, likes, tweets, retweets, follows, subs, donations, whatever, it's all greatly appreciated because we really like interacting with you guys and the rest of the community. You're the reason why we keep doing this, so thank you. if you want to catch a backlog of our podcasts or read Seyrr's little story about Gilgamesh, you can go to our website, phoenixradio.com. If you want Seyrr to dig deeper on the 1.0 things like the Relic Weapons and such, you can email us podcast@phoenixradio.com. If you really want to bother him directly, go to our discord.com or go to our Discord website or Discord. I can talk today, which is linked in our website. And it'll bring you directly into our Discord where you can join the rest of our community and have a really good time with a lot of really fun people. We have a really
just give me a topic to talk about. Since I know, Klauss, you mentioned that we may have some new listeners. One of the reasons that I get referred to as Phoenix Down Radio's librarian is that I am an in real life librarian. I like finding information. I like helping you find information. I will dig through stacks and stacks of stuff to find this cool little bit to share with you. Give me something to do with it.
Yes, please do.
I am apparently taking my work home with me, but I'm okay with that.
At least because he gets to do it gets to do video game stuff, so it's all good.
It's true.
And yes, Triss, story time with Seyrr is great. Let's get more of that. Any shout outs, Seyrr?
Oh, I was thinking about this. Like, a lot of them are just very shout outs to my coworkers and community partners at the library, but I am not doing this in official capacity as librarian, so I don't think I'm supposed to mention them. But shout out to them anyways. A lot of the prep work we're doing for summer programming has been great. And just like stuff has been moving along so smoothly. Several people have been saying like, okay, like, Seyrr, it's really nice to do meetings with you. And it's like, yes, we get through stuff quickly. Everyone gets to leave the meeting early. I always end my meetings like 15, 20 minutes early. And we don't even call a meeting unless we need to hash something out. Announcements can happen through email. Most things can be emails, people, but the things that can't be really shouldn't be. Anyway, shout out to all those people I've been working with for making this process so smooth. Maybe the summer won't be terrible. You can ostensibly find me on Twitter at FF14Seyrr. That's FFXIV SEYRR. I haven't really been doing much with it lately because Twitter has been a whole thing. For more information,
I believe the word you want is shit show.
I feel like that's not extreme enough. Like, what's a shit show but more?
A grand shit show?
We'll workshop it. I'm not really.
I know.
Yeah. But honestly, the best way to get a hold of me is either through emailing us at was it podcast@Phoenix Down Radio?
Yep, or the Discord.
Or our Discord. Klauss always does the announcement type things. I hear him do it so many times, and then when it's time for me to say it, I can't remember a damn bit of it.
It's written in the doc.
Oh, so it is.
It's all over our screen, in fact. The contact us link at the bottom corner.
Yeah. Anyways, yes. Reach out to us. I love to hear from you. I love to get your random questions about, hey, what is the deal with this thing? Ask me all about why Thancred has that weird ninja sequence when they're going to fight Leviathan back in the 2.0 quests. It's a fun bit of like old trivia about this game.
Fair enough.
But yeah, that's what I've got. How about you, Klauss? Any shout outs for this week?
Shout out to Nick Nar for going with me to the concerts and going to Detour with me next week. It'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. Shout out to my other friends Stabs and the Dude, who are also gonna be joining us at Detour. Shout out to my girlfriend for putting up with me as I prep for all of this stuff. Normally, because if she's here during a podcast weekend, she's kind of just hanging out upstairs, watching random movies or whatever, and just dealing with it, which is kind of weird that somebody that likes you is willing to let you do the things that you like too, right?
Yeah. That's really sweet.
It is very sweet. So shout outs to you. You know who you are, and I know you're going to be listening, and I hope you're still listening now when you get to this part of the podcast. Shout out to Seyrr as always, for all the nice hard work you do getting these things ready to go. It is greatly appreciated, especially when I'm not really feeling it, or I have not gotten, as in depth on the new content or whatever we're going to discuss. So having my back is very helpful. I do appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Honestly, it's hard for me not to do a deep dive once you ask me to do something on it, but that's the risky one.
That is true, but I mean, it's better to have a lot of information to cherry pick from than trying to make up stuff with a lack of information.
Klauss did let me know once or twice in our show channel that I am probably spending a little too long on one topic. So thank you for keeping us on track there.
I mean, I only said once, let's wrap it up, but come on. At least today. Today. I mean, maybe in the past I've been like, Seyrr, shut up. Let's go.
Someone's got to herd these cats.
Usually it's you when like Chili and I would get on some sort of weird tangent. You'd be like, guys, you got to keep going.
Well, maybe I want to be the cat sometimes.
Fair enough. Anyway.
Oh my god, I want to go to a cat cafe. What?
Let's find a cat cafe. I'm down for that. Though actually, what I think we should have more of, puppy cafes.
We've actually had a couple library events where we bring dogs in for story time. They tend to be very popular.
Dogs are amazing. Dogs are better than cats. It's true, but...
Oh, you wanted to wrap up the show and then you throw down that gauntlet?
Because it's true. Anyway.
Wrap up the show. We will have words later.
You can find me on the Discord because I'm not really doing much on the social media side because, well, obvious reasons. So join us on Discord. It's the best place to have fun with us and chat with us. So for my co-host who is wrong about cats being better than dogs, Seyrr Timono, I am Klauss Nightbringer, the dog lover. Oh man, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care.